Jackson Chourio has never played in the big leagues. We know this. There are, I believe, 5 examples of players who have been given lengthy extensions prior to their first major league at-bat. None of those deals have been in the ballpark of $80 million. Luis Robert of the White Sox had a $50 million deal before he took his first big league at-bat. That has been blown out of the water. We're obviously going to talk about a lot of angles of this, but I guess first, your first thought there, that's a pretty big risk, but also kind of a no-brainer if it's something they can actually do. I don't know if that's possible to live in both worlds. That's how I look at it. How do you look at it? First blush, looking at this contract.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, when I first heard of this, that they were having these talks late in the minor league regular season, it was a pretty big surprise. Kind of figured the Brewers are going to make the most of these, league minimum years they have with Jackson Chourio, maybe supplement elsewhere. But by giving him this deal, it signifies what a lot of people have hoped about him, and that's that the Brewers believe he's going to be the real deal, that he's going to be a superstar.
Yeah.
You don't give a player this deal if you don't think he's going to be a star.
Right.
Because what the Brewers are getting, the benefit the Brewers are getting is essentially only, 2 to 4 years here. And those 2 to 4 years also come with some risk because you're going to be paying him guaranteed money in years 7 and 8, as well as some years leading up to that too. But it's not like a 7-year free agent contract where you didn't have the player before and you're acquiring him and all of a sudden it changes everything. This is the guy that you were going to have, but the Brewers are effectively saying we think he's going to be really, really good, and so we're going to lock him up for what we hope is going to be a bargain in a decade, almost a decade.
Right, exactly. And what you mean is this contract goes through all the years that he would have been with the Brewers anyway, prior to free agency, and then into the first 2 years where he would have been a free agent. Not until, he's 20 years old.
They were already going to have him for at least 6, maybe 7 years.
Right. And he's 20 years old, and he theoretically, if the team picks up the options that we believe are part of this contract, again, as we record this, then he's not going to leave until he's 30. Still plenty of time to make a lot of money on the open market as a free agent, but to get 10 prime years of a player that, again, this team believes is a superstar, I mean, that's obviously a risk that I think a lot of teams would be willing to take, even if it is a pretty big dollar amount, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Should we go over the names of the other players that have signed these deals? Do we want to scare people away this early in the pod?
I absolutely want to scare people away early in the pod.
So we'll start here. There's some good news on the back end.
Okay. Yeah. If you're talking about players aged 19 and 20, because Jackson Chourio right now is 19 years old. He will turn 20, I believe, on March 11th. So in spring training, or slightly before things really get rolling toward the season, he will be turning just 20 years old. Of the players who have done that, there's a lot of success in that group of guys. It's not a long shot to suggest that Jackson Chourio can be very, very good right out the gate, right?
No, not at all. So I guess we're not going with the scare. We're going with the good.
Yeah, let's go with the good.
The good, yeah.
Oh,
that's fair.
I see.
No,
I
think you look at the 5 names of the guys that signed to these deals and out these,
pre-big league deals.
Big league deals, these long-term deals. And the group kind of scares you away. Everyone besides Luis Robert has been a disappointment, and 3 of them were objectively bad.
Yeah.
Blew up, maybe not entirely blew up in the team's faces because they weren't this much money, but the players aren't big leaguers effectively.
Well, let's give the names. Let's not tease it. It's Luis Robert, as you know. Yeah. It's Scott Kingery of the Phillies, right?
Yep. Eloy Jimenez is the one that's kind of okay.
He's been okay.
But he has injured, and that was part of the package with him coming in. It's not he was injury prone when he signed the deal, and that's how it turned out in the big leagues.
Yeah.
John Singleton, old friend.
We know John Singleton's story
and
pretty well.
Evan White, who came up, I believe, in 2020 or 2021 with the Mariners, and just couldn't hit. Is out of the big leagues in the minors.
Man, I didn't know he was out of the big leagues entirely at this point.
So that's not a great group, but I think that's not nearly as productive as in Chourio's case, comparing him to recent 20-year-olds that teams have called up in the big leagues, because you want to talk about what you can expect him to do at a performance level, and the best best comparison to try to figure that out is age and talent, right? So let's look at the most talented kids that get called up at 19 and 20, and it's easy to figure out who the most talented are because they're the only ones getting called up at 19 and 20.
Yeah, I think in the last decade, there's only 10 seasons of a player age 19 or 20 who's played more than half the games.
Right.
And we're talking about the top crust of
these
talent.
guys are the outliers.
Yes.
And you bank on the outliers to remain very good at baseball. And the names that have done it, JR?
Yeah.
Pretty good. Ronald Acuna, Juan Soto, Wander Franco, before his off-field dilemmas, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Fernando Tatis, Ozzie Albies.
Yeah, it's working
Carlos
out.
Correa, Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Mike Trout,
Jason
Hayward.
This is good.
Like there are some misses in here, not a ton. Adalberto Mondesi is one. Rougned Odor didn't kind of live up to his prospect hype. Jurickson Profar, same injuries happened there. Luis Garcia also came up super young. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the national second baseman.
Yeah, Ruben Tejada is probably the one example of a 20-year-old who did play right away, like half the games.
If you go back to, so it's hard to set an arbitrary endpoint to when you start looking at kids that got called up this young. Because previously, if you look back at Brewers history, there's some not super great. They kind of knowing who to call up. And it was also different status of player development in minor league system. Guys just got called up, didn't play very long, and then fizzled out of the big leagues. So in recent years, with how player development and identification of talent has gotten so much better, teams are really good at knowing what guys to call up and when to call them up. And for the most part, those guys are incredibly talented, and they remain incredibly talented in 5-10 years. So